everyone, and welcome to the Foster Files. My name is Kelly, and I am a foster with Cross Your Paws Rescue in the Pittsburgh area of Pennsylvania. And I have another guest for us to talk to today who I am so excited to get to know myself and for you guys to get to know, because if you haven't discovered her yet, you are going to be thanking me by the end of this episode. I have with me Em from the podcast Straight Up Dog Talk. Hi, Em. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. I love to talk about rescue and foster and all of the wonderful things that happen in that world.
Well, thank you so much for coming. Prior to us starting to record, we were talking a little bit about how my podcast is an itty bitty baby newborn and hers is a toddler. So she has so much to teach me. And I'm just so excited for you to come on and share some of your training experiences and some of the things that you've learned over the time that you've been doing the podcast. So let's start there. Tell us about Straight Up Dog Talk.
Well, Straight Up Dog Talk is, it's kind of a crazy journey how it started. My dog Fitz was, he started out as a very difficult dog. Let's just put it that way. He's a big feeling, heavy emotion guy. He doesn't really trust a lot of people. He doesn't like other dogs. He just was a lot, and he's got a ton of energy, and it's because he's mostly border collie. Come to find out, both not only was his mother hit by a car and then had to have a surgery right before, she became pregnant with him, but then his dad is apparently a very anxious guy too. So all of that stuff, trickles down. So we get a nervous dog from that. And he's really special and I love him so much. But I had a really hard time finding the trainer and the resources that I needed for him. So I became the trainer I needed, and I became the resource that I needed so that other people wouldn't be up crying their eyes out at 2:00 in the morning while they were searching through the black hole of Google.
It absolutely is a black hole, and I admire your tenacity and dedication to continue to work with Fitz because, as you know, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing if everybody committed in that same way to the dog that they have. And certainly not everyone can, right? There are scenarios that it's just not going to work, and we all recognize that. But I think both of us have seen more often than not scenarios where it's just kind of a lack of making that commitment. So how long have you been doing Straight Up Dog Talk? You're in a couple years in, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so I started recording episodes in September of 2022 and it released in January of 2023. So a little over a year and a half in, getting very close to hitting that 2-year mark, which is wild. It feels a little unreal that is where we're at with this. I love it. It started as a passion project and it's kind of turned into what I want to do with the rest of my life. We're slowly building up the resources and brand partnerships so that we can take it on an RV tour and start coming and doing our interviews in person and hosting live events and just, raising money and awareness for local pet rescues in communities all across America.
That is so incredible. Are you still working at all in the training side of things, or are you primarily? Okay. All right. So tell me a little bit about that. Is this like a one-on-one thing where you're taking on individual clients? Do you work for a bigger organization?
So it's one-on-one. I went through some mentorship programs and I am taking continuing education courses. I don't have any of the industry certifications because dog training is a totally unregulated field. It's totally unregulated. You don't have to be certified to be a trainer, but you should work with someone who does educate themselves. I've taken multiple courses, like Kim Brophy's legs course, Michael Shikashio's aggressive dog course. I'm a certified canine nutritionist, and I also am a certified enrichment technician. And I'm constantly taking courses to better what I offer my clients. But really, I focus on emotionally unstable dogs like Fitz, with a heavy, I don't know what you would call it, a heavy specialization, I guess, in nutrition and enrichment, because those are the things that helped us. Because I think a lot of people don't realize how important it is for our dogs to have activities outside of walks. And this all started I don't even know what year it was started being, 2005-ish, so about 20 years there. I was a vet tech. And before that, when I was a young child, I was a pet sitter and a dog walker. And then after being a vet tech, I was also a pet sitter and a dog walker again. And then it kind of just evolved into training. So I've really kind of touched all of the areas of the industry except for grooming, which I refused to do because we had a groomer in one of my veterinary offices and we helped the groomer as techs. We'd hold dogs and things like that. It's just not for me. I don't have the patience for that. I have patience for a lot of things, but not that.
Girl, me either. I've been paying groomers since the day I got dogs because I'm like, I didn't even want to clip nails. I can't do it. And the groomer I have now, I adore her, and she's just incredible. Aunt B's in-home dog grooming in Western Pennsylvania, in case you're interested. But yeah, I don't have the patience for it either. I would rather do like 20 other things than groom the dogs.
I can clip the nails. That's something that comes very, I mean, with the vet tech life, like you learn clip and you do it fast, right? Because that's how it goes in the veterinary field. But if you want me to, clip your dog or clean something up, I can do it very surgically for you. It's not going to look good, like at all.
You had something in there that I wanted to touch on, the nutrition side of things. So you kind of mentioned it sort of off the cuff, but I'm very interested in, you said enrichment and nutrition were two really big things that helped you with fits. And obviously enrichment is something we've been talking about quite a bit. We actually had Lauren on here from Choose Wisely, a mutual friend of ours who connected us. But we didn't talk at all about nutrition. And when I listened to a lot of information regarding big feeling dogs or aggressive dogs, I don't hear a lot about that. So tell me your perspective on that. I'm so curious.
So with nutrition, I guess what I can do is I can start with Fitz. So Fitz was what I thought was a picky eater, right? I struggled to get him to eat. We had urinary tract infections from the time he was like 3 months old till about a year old. It ended up being the food that was the issue. And I would like put his, feed him in his kennel, give him his bowl of food, whatever. My dogs have to eat separately. Let me just put that little caveat there for you, because my small dog, who is my like rescue rehab story, he is a resource guarder. And even though he's 12 pounds, he will attack my 50-pound dog if he thinks that his food is in threat. So I separate my dogs to eat. Fitz does not eat in his kennel anymore because he eats all raw food now. So Topi eats on the porch and Fitz eats in the kitchen. That's how it goes now. But previously, Fitz would eat in his kennel and I would put his food in there and I would come back from work. He wouldn't have eaten any of it. This happened for months and days on end, and it's like, okay, what is going on? And then, he's, if you ever see a picture of him, his coloring is red and white. And anybody who knows anything knows that white dogs are like allergy magnets. Like 90% of the time, if you got a white dog, maybe 95% of the time, you're going to have problems with allergies in your dog. So that's a gut microbiome issue, imbalance right there, because their skin is more sensitive as white dogs, and then their guts are more sensitive. And if they're not fed right, then that causes all kinds of issues. So the skin and coat kind of like they play together. And when the skin is out of balance, the gut microbiome is also out of balance. And there are things that you can do, things that you can add it in to help balance that out. So once I switched Fitz over to a raw diet, which we've been doing for 6 months now, his allergies, he gets a Cytopoint injection twice a year, and his allergies have leveled out a lot more, and he's just calmer. He eats his food, all of it, and he gets excited to eat his food, which is about the coolest thing in the world to see, right? Because
right, especially after struggling for so long.
Yes. I mean, and years and years and years. We did find other kibbles that worked, but we're talking expensive stuff. And then when you learn about seed oils or just oils in general, and there's probably going to be some hate on this, but as a certified pet nutritionist, I'm going to tell you seed oils or fish oils, the likelihood that is going to go rancid before you use it is high, and dogs' bodies cannot break down oils. So if you are spending $30, $40 on salmon oil and just cranking it out onto your dog's food, they're getting maybe 5 to 10% of the benefits of that oil. It's actually really bad for them. And like I said, the likelihood that it will go rancid is very high because as soon as you open those containers and the oxygen hits it, that's it. Like it can go bad very, very quickly without you even knowing it.
So tell me about the raw diet, if you don't mind. I don't know if it's a brand that you're purchasing, such as like obviously a lot of people have heard about like Farmer's Dog, or if this is something that you're making at home. Tell me a little bit about that.
So when I say raw, I mean I go to the butcher and I
Okay.
buy raw. There are brands that we use to supplement things in, like we might use some Vital Essentials, we might use some Dr. Harvey's, we might use some Canine Naturals, just kind of depends on like if we're traveling or things like that. But for the most part, we only feed raw. Now, Toby, he's on a hybrid diet. He gets some Dr. Harvey's and he gets a little bit of raw meat as well, but he has pancreatitis, so we have to be careful with his fat levels. So I have to kind of
Right.
watch that. But the raw diet that's something that I offer in my nutrition and enrichment programs is I will give you 6 recipes that you can rotate every month so that you have that same recipe twice a year. And then, your dog, part of broad feeding is rotating the diets in and out so that the vitamins balance out properly and the nutrients balance out properly. And that's just kind of how it goes. So I give you 6 different recipes that you can rotate. They get that recipe twice a year, and then you keep them on a more normal fluctuating level of everything. And you still use fish, like I put fish in it, but they're actually getting the whole benefit of something that I learned in my journey of podcasting was about bioavailability. And bioavailability is what turned me into a canine nutritionist, because all of those years I worked at a veterinary office and we were recommended certain brands of food because that's what we were told to do, only to find out that those brands of food are like mostly carbohydrates. Dogs have 0 requirements for carbohydrates. And we're making our dogs fat by feeding them. We're causing them to have more health issues, heart issues, kidney issues, diabetes, all the things by feeding them kibble. So when you give them kibble, their body maybe processes, a small portion of it, but really the carbohydrates just give them energy to burn, helps them bounce around with all of the sugar, right? The sugar. But when you give them raw food, you're giving them bioavailable ingredients. And what that means is their body is fully able to digest, process, and 100% use the nutrients in that food. So they're not holding on to extra waste or fat or sugar because their body can actually process it because it's natural. And if you would think about where a dog would eat in the wild, they would eat out in the woods and they would maybe eat like a rabbit or a fox or a squirrel or something, and they would be able to digest that. And they would probably go for the organs first because that's where all of the heavy, dense nutrients are. And their bodies can digest that. They also have something in their mouth, which I can't even think of the enzyme that it is right now, but they produce something in their mouths that kills bacteria, the kind of bacteria that we would be concerned about, like salmonella and things like that. They have a natural occurring enzyme in their body that kills that bacteria so they can digest and process it raw, where we as humans cannot because we get sick from that kind of thing, but dogs do not.
Wonder if that's where that old adage of a dog's mouth is cleaner than a person's came from. Like, I wonder if it came from sort of like understanding that they could eat this stuff that we couldn't eat, and then it just sort of morphed its way into its, quote unquote cleaner. It's so interesting when you hear somebody advocate for a specific diet and, raw diet's working for your dog. I haven't really talked about this on the podcast. I haven't had really reason to, but I have a 15-year-old Shih Tzu mix named Snowball, and he has degenerative disc disease. But in addition to that, probably 4 or 5 months ago, just out of nowhere, he was just having really bad diarrhea, and we couldn't shake it, right? So we put him on the bland diet, which is usually kicks it pretty good. You get him on the chicken and you get him on the brown rice and nothing else. But it just wouldn't kick it. So we had blood work done. He was almost 15 at that time. And we just couldn't kick it. And they recommended the Hills gastrointestinal biome. And I have exactly 0 sponsors. So this is me speaking from my experience. But to be totally honest, I have yet to take him off of that because his whole everything changed. His poop changed. It's consistently solid and he is playing again and he has energy again. So I think the point that I'm getting at, and I, would love to hear your perspective on this, is that there are a number of diets that can potentially work just depending on what your dog's needs are. Like when it comes to things like pancreatitis or kidney issues or diabetes, that's already in place, right? We haven't avoided it. It's there. So how would you recommend, because Google is a black hole of information, how would you recommend people go about finding the right diet for their dog? Because I always say start with your vet, but of course they are incentivized for selling certain things. But then on the other hand, you don't necessarily want to discount what they're saying. I hope I'm making sense with my question there.
You are, and I'm going to probably shock a bunch of people with this answer. The first thing I'm going to say is feed the dog in front of you. My dogs don't eat the same thing because they're different dogs, right? They have different health problems. They have different allergies. They have different things. So their diet is completely different. It always has been. The second thing I'm going to say is that your vet has 1 to 3 hours of course education in nutrition. I have 40 hours, okay? Your vet has a textbook that they got when they were in vet med school that has a Hills Science Diet logo on the back of it. I have talked about this on my podcast once. We're going to be releasing another episode about this again with Daniel Shuloff, who is the owner of a brand of food called Keto Natural Pet Food. And he is in the middle of suing Science Diet because of the amount of carbohydrates and the weight gain that they cause for dogs with special health issues. Okay. Mm-hmm. So giving a dog who's in renal failure or kidney failure or something like that, diabetic, putting them on those special diets where the main problem is this dog has the inability to produce sugar or produces too much sugar or all of the things, just depending on what it is, and giving them a diet that's 40 to 70% carbohydrates, you're actually completely jacking up their systems, causing more issues and causing their internal organs to work harder. And that can actually cause even more issues for your dog. So I don't ever recommend Science Diet. And if I'm being perfectly honest, I don't recommend any brands of food that you can buy inside of a pet store. Now, if you go to a specialty store, like one of those mom and pop shops where they bring in different curated brands of food, there are definitely some brands of foods that you can find that are better. Open Farms is a brand that I like. Canine Naturals is a brand that I like. Dr. Harvey's is a brand that I like. Bones & Co., Vital Essentials. There are several brands that I would absolutely recommend. But I also understand that there are people who have budgets. And not everybody can afford those price points, right? So again, I come back to feed the dog in front of you. If you find something that works for your dog, use it. But correlation between kibble and cancer is being made, and it is high.
Okay. So, I mean, again, I think how do we as lay people who don't have 40 hours of nutritional benefit, how do we move through the weeds?
So you hire somebody like me to help you. You hire somebody like me to help you. Find somebody who can help you go through the steps, right? I offer a 2 to 4 week independent program where we specifically work on your dog's needs, your dog's likes, and what works best for you. And yeah, there's going to be some changes in poop, and you're going to go through some things. You're going to see some things that are like, oh, I don't necessarily like that, but you got to get on the other side of it. Because if you don't let your dog get all of that out of their system and start over with the new diet, you're not really going to see the results. Because what happens is people see that diarrhea and then they're like, ugh, and then they stop, right?
Mm-hmm.
But grains are actually pretty bad for your dogs because they're really high in carbohydrates. Again, all the sugar again. And so when your vet tells you to feed chicken and rice, that's actually all you're doing is stopping your dog up and giving them a sugar rush. You want to give them chicken broth and chicken? Totally fine. Totally fine. Cook it, not a problem. When I convert people over to raw, we do it completely, like all at once. Boom, done. And yeah, there's some things that you see, maybe some diarrhea, maybe some discolored poop, things like that. But I can tell you that my dog's poop size, because he actually processes the food that he eats, right, went from, maybe being 2 fistfuls to half a fistful of poop, because there's no waste to get rid of when they're actually using what goes into their body. Again, I don't advocate for everyone to go on a raw diet, but there are 3 things that you can add to your dog's diet based on their weight that will absolutely help your dog. First, I always recommend goat yogurt. You can get this at Trader Joe's or any health store. Dogs are actually allergic to lactose. Do not give your dog Greek yogurt. Give your dog goat yogurt because it doesn't have lactose in it. Blueberries or blackberries. Antioxidants are really good for them. They're really, really helpful, and most dogs will just eat them like they're the best treat in the whole world.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can give your dog a raw egg, depending on the size of your dog. So like a small dog, you can give an egg once a week. A medium-sized dog can have, like I would say medium, let me clarify. Like small would be 1 to 20 pounds. Medium would be 20 to 45 pounds. That's 2 eggs a week. Large-ish would be 50 pounds, 45, 50 pounds to 60, 70 pounds, can have 3 eggs a week. And then a large dog, like a Mastiff or a Great Dane, over 100 pounds here, we can say probably have an egg every day. So, and you just crack it on their food. They can eat the eggshell and everything. The eggshell is a natural debrider for teeth. So you can help with their dental stuff just by giving them the eggshell. And most dogs absolutely love it.
So when I started this podcast, I did not think that I was going to have to visualize 2 fistfuls of poop. So I appreciate that.
I'm very visible. I think that started when I was a vet tech, because we would often compare things to food. Like, is it soft serve or is it beef stew? Like it's just something that I do. So glad that helped.
Well, the best part of that is that anybody listening that has a dog literally was like, yeah, I know in relationship to my hand what size my dog's dumps are. Yeah, that makes sense to me. I like the idea of, because all or nothing certainly works for a lot of people and can work for a lot of people. But like, to your point, people are scared to make big change, and people also have budgets. So even just the idea of just adding the egg, like you said, adding blackberries and blueberries, like you said, adding goat yogurt. I mean, everybody loves a reason to go to Trader Joe's. So go to Trader Joe's and get some goat yogurt. A girl that works for me, she actually has goats. Her daughter, hi, Sophia, listens to this podcast, and I might have her start making me some goat yogurt. I'm sure now there you go to have a little project for that. But I love that. I love those little tips. I love those little incremental things that you can do to make your life better or make your dog's life better. I think that is so important, because we're all super busy. We all have a lot going on. And so focusing on this one teeny tiny little thing can be super helpful.
Well, and one more thing that I'll drop in, just because you said you like the tips.
Do
vegetables. A lot of people feed their dogs carrots, broccoli, things like that. If you want your dog to get any nutritional value from vegetables, you have to steam them. Your dog's body will just shoot it right out if you don't. I mean, yeah, they'll chew it up or whatever, but no nutritional value. So make sure you steam them or cook them, however.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. I'm going to listen to this like 6 times while I'm editing and then take notes down.
I was going to say take notes or just eat my way.
I'm going to have to. Yeah. Oh, I have the inside track. That's good to know. It's not what you know, it's who you know. I appreciate building the network. So is there anything from having done this podcast, or maybe your time as a trainer, or maybe your time even going back 20 years to being a vet tech, is there anything that you learned about having dogs or raising dogs that you feel like genuinely surprised you, that really like took you back and shocked you, that you'd like to share?
Honestly, I'm going to really hammer in a point home here, and that is something that I say on my podcast all of the time. It's actually one of my taglines. Every dog is different. You will never have the same dog twice. And I don't think that I realized that until Fitz. I mean, I've had hard dogs before. I had to behaviorally euthanize 2 dogs.
I'm sorry.
Because it's rough. It's something that I talk about on my podcast, because it's something that we need to be able to talk about. But Fitz was different in that I knew there was a way to unlock him. He wasn't aggressive. He was just scared, right? He didn't know what he was doing. And no matter what I did or who I talked to, they wanted to put him on meds. They thought that he had too much energy. He wasn't smart enough to be able to train. It's not that this dog isn't smart enough. It's that he's too smart, right? He's like, no, I'm not doing it that way. Or, no, don't want to be involved with that. So I would really like to impress that it doesn't matter if you've had 5 dogs or 10 dogs or 50 dogs. Get to know the dog in your home or dogs in your home for the unique individuals that they are. Spend time with each dog individually, because you cannot fully realize the personality and the way that your dog thinks unless you give them the opportunity to fully engage with you and be who they are.
I love that. I love that. At one point, for about 7 years, 8 years, Michael and I had 5 dogs. So we had a proper pack. And, people would generalize, right? Do they get along? I'm like, yeah, the same way kids do. They irritate the hell out of each other, but they mostly get along and nobody's killing each other anytime soon, right? Mm-hmm. But one of the things that like I would talk to people about and I would say is, I didn't realize how individual dogs were until I had like 5 dogs at one time. And then you're seeing in real time these 5 different personalities. So how they handle each interaction completely different from each other, and how they're just these individual dogs. And now together, Michael and I have owned 7 dogs together. And then we've fostered 20. So it's still like a baby number, but every single dog is so different. It's just such a joy to watch their personalities come out and be so different. That's part of the reason that I don't know if you had a chance to, and I know you're busy, listen to the episodes where I talk about Max, but that's part of the reason that we're struggling with Max, is because he's a personality we haven't dealt with before, and we feel very unsure about how to try to move forward with this dog that's not our dog. Like, he's not our dog. So we don't have autonomy to make decisions about, do we want to hire an animal behaviorist like Lisa, who we were talking about earlier? Do we want to put him in this type of training or that type of training? Like, he's not our dog. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Every dog is so different.
I can give you a little activity that you can do with Max that is so silly and so simple, but this is where I start every single one of my training clients. Get a bag of food, kibble, treats, mix some stuff together, go sit somewhere quiet with just him, and every time he engages with you in a positive way, you could say yes, you could say good boy, you can say whatever you want to use for your marker word, and give him a piece of food. And you will find very quickly that you have a dog that very readily wants to start interacting with you, because every time he does, you give him some food. And that is like the quickest way to build a bond and build trust with a dog. And it seems silly, but then a little bit later, once he gets really good at it and you have like 100%, he's tuned in, do it like 3 or 4 days in a row. And then maybe on day 5, get him to engage with you a little bit differently. Then once he engages with you and he's like expecting his treat, then say, okay, sit. And if he sits, say the word that you like to say when you give him his treat and give him the treat. And just really build on that, because you will find that relationship really starts to hone in and that he's really looking to you for direction, and he will start to relax and kind of go into your pattern. One thing that I've learned about nervous and reactive dogs is that if you cannot provide consistency and stability and absolute routine for them, they're going to struggle, because they need that framework and they need that reliability in order to thrive.
One of the things I heard you talk about on a recent episode, and forgive me, I don't know which one, I've been really diving into a lot of different dog-specific podcasts. I mean, I've been a Murderino true crime girly forever, but I'm just getting into the dog podcast space. But you talked about with someone how you took Fitz for a lot of walks, and you would take him for walks, and then you would come back and he would still be like worked up and he wouldn't be doing well. And then all of a sudden something changed and you realized that getting him out into the world was actually terrifying him. So you were doing, and these are your words, like more harm than good by doing that behavior. And then so you completely switch what you were doing, and you brought him back into the house, and you said, I needed him to trust me again, to not take him out into the scary world.
Yeah, I actually think that was a solo episode where I talk about like reactivity and walks. Yeah. No, you're fine. There's a lot of episodes, but yes, that was a recent episode. And I realized that what I was doing was I was overstimulating my dog. And what a lot of people don't realize is that if we don't let our dogs get past that adrenaline rush and like get some of that cortisol out of their bodies, they're just on all of the time. And that's why we think that they're high energy. It's not because that they're high energy. It's because they don't know how to relax. And if they don't know how to relax, they're just go, 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 go all of the time. And it was like banging my head against a wall, because we would go for a walk, and then we would play fetch, and then we would, do something else. And then it would be like, okay, well, maybe we just needed to go on a longer walk. Maybe we just needed to play fetch for 20 minutes longer. But he would just be running himself into the ground. His tongue would be hanging out in 15 different ways. And he'd just be like Dopey, the 7 dwarves, just like, like all over the place. And just completely just acting like all wonky and whatever. But I would try to get him to relax, and he would be restless, and he would pace, and then he would do zoomies, and then he would chase his tail. And it was just like always something. But it was because he didn't know that it was okay to just chill out. And so now we have cues for that, right? Let's go hang out. That means let's go lay on the bed and watch TV. And now when we do that, he passes out. But he also gets his enrichment. He gets, his walk. He gets his training sessions. He gets his playtime. We really have to break it down. But he had to learn that stillness was just as important as movement, because a tired dog is like, as we were talking about earlier, it's like toddlers, man. It's like it's like a drunk toddler. They're angry. They have no idea what they're doing. They're running into the wall and they're licking everything. And it's like, what is happening here? Like there's no way to come out of it. So it was really hard for me to figure that out, because I had never had a dog that was like that before. All of my dogs were just like chill, and they would, just do what they were supposed to do, unless they were fighting with each other, which was like another issue. But this issue was that he just had no chill, and we had to teach him.
Wow. I hear that a lot. I mean, I hear a lot of people say, oh, my dog has no chill. And it's going to be interesting to now respond to those people differently, about, hey, well, have you taught the dog to chill? Have you given, like, train the dog? I think Lauren was saying training the dog place so that that dog knows that you go to the place and you have your spot that you relax and then everything sort of relaxes around you. I think that that's so interesting. I don't think enough people make the dog kid comparison in a really a productive way. True. I mean, I don't know what your situation is. We're childless. Like
I don't have kids either.
yeah, but I am an aunt to 11 different nieces and nephews. And when you said when you were younger, you were pet sitting. I was babysitting. So I've been around kids forever. But I don't think enough people make a comparison because they think it's like, talking shit on their kids, but it's not. It's like your kids go through this point where they cannot communicate with words to you how they're feeling, how they're thinking, why they're behaving the way that they're behaving. So you as a parent, I mean, a good parent anyway, is taking the time to go, well, I got to figure it out. I got to figure out what behavior is different. I got to give them an opportunity to feel safe or comfortable or let them play when appropriate and this and that. But then all of a sudden, when it comes to dogs, we think that as they get older, they're just supposed to inherently know that. And we don't take the time to like learn that communication the way that we do with toddlers who don't speak yet.
Yeah.
And babies.
That's a really excellent comparison. But also, dogs are intelligent in a different way than humans. And so we do this thing where we compare, right? We compare dogs' intelligence or any other animal's intelligence to our intelligence. And it always falls short because dogs cannot speak. But in my opinion, dogs are much smarter than humans because they can smell things, hear things, see things in a totally different way than we can. They just can't communicate them the same way that we do. And we say, oh, that's a bad behavior, when it's not a bad behavior. It's just a genetic response that comes out of a dog. Somebody burns you with a lighter, you're going to scream, or you're going to say, ouch, or you're going to say, don't do that. That's all a dog is doing when something happens that they don't like and they bark or they growl or they snap. They're saying, don't do that. I don't like that. And people are like, oh, that's bad behavior. No, that is a dog being a dog. And we need to remember that.
I say to people, there's no such thing as a bad dog.
There isn't.
And I'm learning that there are dogs that can't, like you said, you had a couple behavioral euthanasia cases. So there are dogs that unfortunately get past the point of redemption. And that is wildly unfortunate. But there isn't such a thing as a bad dog. There's only that we're not speaking the language that they're speaking. And like, how do we figure that out? How do we work through that? How do we take the time and sit down and understand our role in that? And I think that's incredibly, incredibly important.
So, and I think with behavioral euthanasia cases, I'll just drop this in there. I always tell people that when a dog has to be behaviorally euthanized, they need to remember that this dog was just not made for this world. Like, it's not because it's a bad dog. It's just because this dog is not able to survive in this world. It's not safe for them. It's not safe for us. And it wouldn't be safe if we rehomed the dog and put it in a different situation where we could still trigger all of those emotions. Mm-hmm. It's just not safe. And that's okay. It's okay to admit that.
I like making things kind of simple and digestible for people. So if you had somebody who is considering adopting a dog or has a dog that they've adopted and they're maybe having some struggles, if you could break it down to, I don't know, 2 or 3 things that they could do on a regular basis that would help them out tremendously, what would you break that down to? How would you break that down for people?
Well, the first thing that I would do is I would tell them exactly what I told you earlier. Play the little hand feeding game, right? Sit with the dog, play the little hand feeding game, build that relationship with the dog, and even progress it so far that you're feeding your dog's entire meal to them from those sessions. Break it down throughout the day, give them that time, and really make it part of your routine to interact with that dog and focus on that dog and give that dog stability and attention and routine throughout the day. The second thing that I would say is routine, 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 routine. Okay? Make your schedule as predictable as possible. do things the same way every day unless you can't. But make sure that there are things that happen in a certain order every single day. So if you're leaving for work and you put the dog in the kennel and they get a bully stick every morning when you leave, and then when you come home, you tell them they're a good dog and you take the little bully stick holder and you go outside and you play and go potty and, continue to do the hand feeding throughout this whole thing. And then, maybe it's time for a meal or whatever, just make it easy for the dog. Don't cause surprise or fear by doing crazy things all of the time or leaving every 5 minutes or changing your schedule every other day or whatever. I understand that people have crazy schedules and all that kind of stuff. But I'm telling you right now, if you get a dog breed that is reactive or fearful and you don't spend time building that relationship with the dog, it's never going to work. It's never going to work. You're going to be stressed out. They're going to be stressed out. Everyone in that house is going to be unhappy. So if you cannot have a predictable routine, do not get a high energy, probably anxious dog. Just don't. And then the third thing that I would say would be rest. Rest for you, rest for the dog, spend time together resting, all of the things. Because again, a tired dog is not a productive dog. They don't listen, they don't eat, they get crazy, and they do dumb stuff. That is a lot of times when destructive behaviors start happening is when a dog's needs are unfulfilled. So if they haven't had the one-on-one time, if they haven't had the play time, if they hadn't had the walk, maybe they don't need the walk. Because some dogs don't like walks. But go through your routine, your daily routine, all your steps through, get a lick mat in, whatever. And then at the end of the day, if you're still seeing that there's like some tension or some hyperactivity or whatever, try rest and then go on to the next day. And if you're still seeing that, then maybe it's time to work with a trainer, because sometimes another set of eyes is the best thing that you can do for you and your dog, because somebody who's outside of the situation is going to go, oh, and they're going to help you see what was right in front of you.
Right.
Like, no shame.
So funny, because I'm going to go back to the kid comparison again. I had that conversation with my sister. I'm really especially close with my youngest sister and her daughter, my 5-year-old niece. And it's funny, we have these moments where maybe my niece is in the middle of a meltdown or she's fighting my sister on something or whatever. And my sister is so frustrated, right? Because like Marie just won't do what she wants. And I come in and I throw this the funniest example I can give is that she wouldn't get dressed and she just was fighting my sister on getting dressed. And I said, hey, Marie, I bet you can't get dressed faster than I can. And let me tell you, she got dressed so fast immediately. And that so stupid. And my sister was like, God, how did you do that? I'm like, because I wasn't in it. I wasn't in it. I wasn't in the emotion. I wasn't in the frustration. You know what I mean? She wasn't making me mad. I'm not her mom. So I just am privileged to be on the outside of it and go, I'm not invested in this. Let's see if something else works. You know what I mean? I think that's kind of a little bit what you're talking about, like having that other eyes come in and not be emotionally frustrated, because with love can come frustration for sure.
Well, and I think that's a big thing that I promote in my training and in my podcast is that, there's no judgment here. There's no guilt. There's no shame. I am not judging you. I am here to help you and maybe laugh at you a little bit, but I guarantee that at some point you will also be laughing because you're going to go, oh, whoops, and it's going to make sense. But that's the thing is that in anything in life, if you can learn to laugh at yourself and you can learn to pivot and you can learn to take some constructive criticism, it's going to help move the needle. So don't be afraid to try new things and don't be afraid to ask for help, because I think that in today's society, people are so afraid to ask for help because they're afraid that somebody's going to say, oh, well, you're doing that wrong, or, oh, well, this is your fault, or, oh, well, why did you do that? When there's so much negative training information out there, again, the Google black hole once again, and people just don't know what to do. They get overwhelmed. And so they try all these different things. but they don't try things long enough, or they don't do them in the right order, or they don't exactly know what they're doing. And then that just causes more complications. So don't be afraid to ask for help. It's so much better when you have somebody to help you guide through some of this stuff, because like you said, when we're not as emotionally invested in it as you are, trust me, we've been there. We've been emotionally invested in our own dogs, and we learned the hard way. But it helps to have that extra set of eyes go, okay, take a breath. This is what we need to do. And let's start over at square one here and see if we can change the outcome here. Because I will flat out tell you, there are days when my herding dog herds me down the back stairs, and this is something that we've worked on for 2 years, but it's my fault when it happens, okay? It's my fault when it happens because I didn't have the treats ready, or we didn't go for the walk first, or he was too amped up because I was gone an extra hour, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Remember that you have part in the problem here. And if you take responsibility for your own actions and look at the problem through a different lens, you're going to have more constructive outcomes.
I love that. You're just such a wealth of knowledge, Em. I'm so glad you're doing a podcast where you are sharing that with an audience bigger than 30, which is I'm at. So it's amazing. I love that. I think if I want to kind of bring this a little bit back to really talking about rescue specifically and really talking about saving lives, what I loved that you said was take the time to create a bond. If you're bringing in a new foster dog, if you're bringing in a newly adopted dog, you can create a beautiful bond with a dog that's not a puppy. There's a lot of misconception that the only way that you can do this is if you get a puppy, and that's so wildly naive and closed-minded to these amazing dogs that are out there, that if you take the time to create a bond with them. And even if you're bringing in a foster, that you don't know the background, or that it has a really hard background, just take some time to sit with the dog and just kind of build up that trust, even if you only have the dog for a short period of time. And then take this knowledge that you're hearing from somebody like Em and pass it along to your adopters if you're a foster. Share this episode. Give them an opportunity to learn how to look at this from a different perspective to better be able to communicate with their dog. And I think that that's really just going to help everybody overall.
Yeah, no, it's wild how much it can help people just by sharing that information instead of, gatekeeping it. And Toby came from a really bad background. He was a rescue. He was used as a bait dog in dog fights. And so when I got him, he didn't trust anybody. It took me 45 minutes to get him to approach me when I was at the rescue. And by the time I had him, interacting with me and excited to interact with me, and I asked the rescue if I could take him into the quiet room, they basically made me sign every single piece of paperwork that they had, because he had bitten every single worker at the rescue, and the only person that could handle him wasn't there that day. I took Toby into the quiet room, and he got in my lap, and he curled up, and he went to sleep. And the lady came on over the intercom, and she said, "So you're taking him, right?" And I said, "Yes, I'm taking him." Of course I am. But it just shows that even in an hour, a dog that had bit everyone did not bite me, and he was different. But we had a long, rough road after that. But you have to be in it, and you have to be in it for the right reasons if you want to see that dog transform. And a little bit of time and a little bit of patience goes a long way. So like I said, it might seem stupid. It might seem like, why are we doing this? One piece of kibble at a time. But it makes a difference, because that dog learns that they can trust you. And with some dogs like Toby, you might be chucking that piece of food across the room so that they can get it, because they won't take it out of your hand and they won't take it by your foot. But toss the food away and let them go get it over there. And then they're going to come back and they're going to look at you again. They're going to be like, "Give me that again," and just make a little game out of it. That's fun. They like that.
I don't want to take up any more of your time. We have been talking for such a long time, and I truly, truly appreciate it. But I know that you brought a foster spotlight for us today. So tell me about the dog that you want to highlight.
Okay, so my hometown rescue is called Dogs Forever. They have a dog right now whose name is Grover, and he is a very anxious guy. He's got a high-pitched bark. He's very nervous. He's never had a stable home in his entire life, and he's not even a year old.
Ah,
He's he's like 10 and a half months old. He's a blackmouth cur and is just a really big baby. He loves dogs. He loves kids. He literally loves everything except for being left alone. This is something obviously that could be worked on. He just needs time and patience. And unfortunately, he's kind of a handful, and people up to this point just have not known what to do for him. And he can't be left alone for 8 hours a day because, he'll just destroy things. But he is absolutely freaking adorable. He's so cute. I would say he's kind of like a blondish brown color, and he's got a black snoot. Like he's absolutely adorable. And I think with the right person, he would be a phenomenal dog.
so Dogs Forever. Now, I know you're in the Midwest. I want to say you're in an I state. Are you in
Iowa. Yep.
Okay, that's what I thought. So where is Dogs Forever, and do they do the cute FUR ever spelling of forever?
Um, no, it's forever, unfortunately, not forever.
Because that is a totally valid question when somebody's looking up. And where in Iowa is Grover?
We are in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and the contact person that I have at Dogs Forever is Crystal. I don't know if that's who you guys would get, but they're an amazing rescue. It's a teeny tiny little rescue that pulls dogs from other shelters that need relief. And they have, one of those policies where you have to foster to adopt at first, make sure that it's a good fit. And then they always, always, always will take the dog back, no matter if it's been 1 week or 1 year or 10 years. Like they will take the dog back and the dog will always have a place to go to. So it's an incredible rescue. I absolutely love them. And I actually had a different dog whose name was Hobbs. But Hobbs's foster family decided that he was too wonderful and they decided to keep him.
Yay! That's the best. Literally, Dogs Forever will let you do the 100-day mattress tryout.
They will. Yeah.
To make sure it's a good fit. I love that dedication and that commitment. Like Cross Your Paws doesn't do it exactly that same way, but the way they commit to doing their best work to try to make sure it's a great home, it's just such a great thing.
It's so important. It really is. It really is so important. And it was so funny because Hobbs and there was another dog, I think his name was Broly. There was two dogs, and Broly looked exactly like my first dog, Cajun, and then Hobbs kind of like looked like he almost looked like a reverse brindle. He was more orange with like black spots. And I had told Crystal, I'm like, these dogs need to get adopted because I'm going to be in trouble if they don't. Because I have two dogs that don't like other dogs. I cannot have another dog. And she was like, well, then you better get on it. And so fortunately, before I got too involved, they both got adopted.
Oh, that's awesome. So I will share Dogs Forever's, I'm sure they have an Instagram page. I will put their website in my show notes, and I will share pictures and whatever I can find of Mr. Grover when this podcast releases so people can find him. And maybe, who knows, maybe I'll end up at the end of the day with 32 listeners, and 2 of them will be in Cedar Rapids, Iowa.
I hope so.
Thank you so much for your time. It has been truly a pleasure, and I have learned so much about this world that I'm diving into, and just about, how to approach dogs in just such a deeper way than I've done in my whole life. So I am so thrilled, and I wish you tremendous luck on Straight Up Dog Talk. and on your RV tour. And if you make your way to Pennsylvania and you do not text me, I will be personally offended. And then I will just delete this episode and no one will ever hear it again.
Pennsylvania is on the list because one of my mentors is in Pennsylvania and Lauren is in Pennsylvania. So I will absolutely be stopping in Pennsylvania.
And Dawn and I will need to go out together.
Yeah, for sure. And
yeah,
let's do this again and keep building each other up.
Yes. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate you.
Yeah, anytime. It was wonderful to be here.